I have been getting so many requests to review this thing, and it's finally here. The PocketGo by the makers of the Bip Boy. It's a new portable emulation solution. It's not perfect, but it is awesome. Alright, let's go right into it. Now, I got the PocketGo maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and I've been super busy in the last couple of days. That's why this is slightly late. But here it is. So let's take a look at what comes in the box of the PocketGo here. So we have the PocketGo, obviously. I'm going to leave this aside for a moment. We also have, now this is interesting. Now this is a fake unboxing because I've actually unboxed it already and played with it. But I want to show you what's in the box. So you have, let's take a look here. There's a little instruction sheet here. Now obviously we're not going to need this, so you can set that aside, no worries. You got a micro USB cable to charge the device. I won't need this because I assume you have something like this in your house. I have micro USB right here. This is USB-C, I think. This is USB Type-C right here. I got a whole bunch of mini USB cables, which are pretty much now useless because a lot of devices don't really use mini USB anymore. So now I have another one. One thing that's interesting that they included here, so there's the micro SD card reader in case you don't have one on your computer. Now this is an interesting addition that I really didn't expect. These buttons here, they included these buttons here in case you want to change the color scheme of your PocketGo to something that looks more like a Super Famicom. I love the look of the Super Famicom buttons. I love the color scheme on the Super Famicom controller. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, this right here, obviously this isn't a Super Famicom controller. This is an 8-bit do, I still don't know how to say this, that simulates the appearance of the Super Famicom controller. So they included those buttons in case you want to change your PocketGo. I like that. I'm gonna give this a shot. Though I do like the original Game Boy aesthetic they have going on. Let's take a look at that. Let me organize this here. Okay, so here is the actual unit. Let me zoom in a little bit more because I want you to get a close look at this thing. Alright, here we go. So this is the PocketGo. I'm going to take it out right here. And right off the bat, as you can see, it'll remind you of an original Game Boy because, you know, even though, I mean, this is white, the Game Boy is more like beige. But it's close enough. You got the dark D-pad, you got the purple buttons here on the side, so it invokes, and even let me get one of my Game Boys here. I want to show you what I mean. Okay, so here's one of my original Game Boys, and you see what I mean here. Light body, dark D-pad, the purple A and B buttons here on the side, and even one detail that I really enjoy is that the screen, which is glass by the way, which is nice, has this little curve on the bottom right corner here, just like the Game Boy. I would have liked this shade of gray here was a little lighter to more closely match the color scheme of the Game Boy, but I'm just nitpicking. Let me give you a size comparison here. So when Bip Boy first showed off this model here, people assumed that it would have the same dimensions as the Revo K101, and Bip Boy said no, it's actually smaller, and I'm gonna compare the two here, and it's quite a bit smaller, and I'm all about portability, so I really like that. For some people, perhaps it might be a little too small to hold comfortably for a long stretch of time. Not a problem for me. I never had a problem with that, which is likely why I'm such a fan of portables. Now, if I compare it to the original Bip Boy, well, the new Bip Boy anyway. Now, whereas the Bip Boy had more of this vertical arrangement for the buttons in the screen, the PocketGo goes more for the horizontal GBA look and feel. Now, most Game Boy collectors prefer the horizontal layout. I do miss the look of the DMG that the Bip Boy was trying to emulate, but I also appreciate this thing. I like this a lot. And for another size comparison here, this is a Game Boy Micro, which is, I mean, it's hard to be smaller than a Game Boy Micro, but this is how they stack up. It's about the same dimensions. Obviously the Micro is a little bit smaller, but they're not, you know, this is not much bigger than the Micro. It's pretty thin as well, and it's very lightweight. This is the kind of device that you're going to toss in your pocket and completely forget it's even there. So that's a plus. Now let's actually turn this thing on. Now, just like the new BitBoy, this comes with its own little micro SD card, and you're gonna put this in to load the operating system. So here you go. Before we go into this, actually, let me take a look at the device here a little bit more. So you have L and R buttons here, which is something that was missing on the BitBoy. So that's nice. You got the D-pad, start and select, X, Y, A, and B, and a physical volume wheel here, which is something that BitBoy users didn't like the fact that you didn't have that on the BitBoy. It used a combination of buttons to adjust the volume and the brightness of the screen, which was fine for me, but a lot of people wanted an actual physical volume wheel, and BitBoy brought that back with the PocketGo. Up on the top, you have a micro SD slot, TV out, and I have no idea where the TV out cables went on my unit because I never use that. Like, I'm about portability, so I don't want to tether this thing to my TV. It goes against what I'm all about. So I don't know where it is, though I'm sure I have a whole bunch of them lying around here somewhere. Then you have the micro USB port to charge, a headphone jack, and a reset button, which will act as a menu button in a lot of the apps on this device. Now, this OS, you might be familiar with this if you use something like Dingus. Oh wow, what just happened? I went to sleep, I think? Due to inactivity? Yes. Now, this operating system here might be familiar to you if you ever use something like Dingus. On the previous BitBoys, that's what they were shipping them with as well. So I like this quite a bit. You have the little icons for the emulators there. You got Game Boy, there's GB8 right next to it, NES, SNES, the Atari Lynx, the Atari 2600. There's a Mega Drive or Sega Genesis for the North Americans. You got a hybrid Master System Game Gear emulator right there. PC Engine, PS1, Arcade, Neo Geo, DOS, WonderSwan, and then there's 3 more Game Boy emulators here at the bottom that I haven't really played around with that much. So I like the way it feels in the hand. It's like, it's not so small like the Micro. It's a little bit bigger, just slightly more girthy. It's so light, I like this quite a bit, but it's not light in a way that makes it feel cheap. You know, it doesn't feel plasticky. It's like the perfect weight and size in my opinion. Now, interestingly, this uses the same screen as the BitBoy, so you're having something that's, I mean, comfortable size-wise. The dimensions are about the same, but the screen, they maintain the same size, which is always good. So I'm gonna go into the Game Boy emulator here. Let's see here, GB. I'm gonna boot up one of my all-time favorites. You guys know this. Burger Time, that's one of my favorite games on the Game Boy. Now, obviously the exposure on my camera is not going to be much help here. Let me change this a bit so you can see a little bit of the screen as you would see it in real life. So this is more a better reproduction of the colors. Now, this is an IPS panel, just like with the BitBoy, and the viewing angles are pretty good. I'm gonna start a game here. Now, one thing I really love about this emulator, let me just, I'm gonna load my game here. This is a great Game Boy emulator, by the way. I'm gonna load the state. I love the aesthetic they went with this thing. So this is my save game here. Let's move around a bit. It's always hard to play these games through the viewfinder because I gotta make sure that the device is within the frame, and anyway. So I love the color scheme that I have going on here. This is one of the filters that this emulator comes with, and it comes with perhaps too many filters. It's overwhelming. I'm going to show you here what I mean. So right now I'm going to go into the settings, and I'm going to go into the color filter. Sorry, not the filter, the mono palette. So this is a Game Boy Color scheme. This is basically what the original Game Boy game Burger Time Deluxe would look like if you were to play it on a Game Boy Color. Right, this is the palette that it was able to reproduce. But there's so many more. Let me go here. So I have, this is the default, so this is kind of like, you know, pea soup green. That is like so nostalgic. Like this, to me, this is Game Boy right here. Like I really like being able to play like this. This is exactly how I remember the games looked like on the Game Boy. But if I want a little bit more color, again, I can go into settings and I go into mono palette. And then I can just like, there's a bunch of different, so this is like monochromatic, this is monochromatic, more, you know, a little bit lighter green like this. This is also pretty cool. And then you can mess around to add colors like, let's see here, color, mono palette. And then I'm gonna go like this. So this adds a little bit of color, though this one is not a good example because it's still a lot of greens. Let's go with the, no, this is not, this might be a little more exciting. There we go. So this is a bunch of oranges and blues. So you see what I mean? There's a lot of, on the built-in emulator for the Game Boy, there's a lot of filter options to make your Game Boy games look a little bit better. So that is really cool. So I'm gonna go back to the beginning here. And obviously for me, something like this, I would use it mostly for playing Game Boy games, but there's also, like I said, NES, GBA, which is great because now, let me see here. Let's try Tony Hawk's here on the GBA. That game was great. I had that game, and it was amazing. Now, this is, some would argue, the best way to play. Oh my god, like, I'm not sure if this really comes across in the video, but the screen is really, really great. So let's go here with Free Skates. All right, let's see this. Okay. Alright, okay, this is good. Whoops, I accidentally scrolled the volume move here. Let me get to a good spot here so I can change that back. Okay, so yeah, it gets quite loud. Oh yeah, this is exactly how I remembered it on the GBA. Man, let me turn this down because this is a little too loud now. Man, like, Tony Hawk on the GBA, like, portable Tony Hawk for the first time ever was incredible. Oh my goodness, it's still pretty loud. So as you can see, it gets very, very loud. So you got GBA games, you got Super Nintendo games, like these are old hat by now. This is what we've been emulating for a while, portably. You can also, let me start at the beginning here, you can also emulate PS1, but the performance is not going to be the best. If you buy the PocketGo, the games you're going to be emulating are going to be Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, Game Gear, Master System, those types of games. Going into 32-bit games is not going to run very well. They run, and I can actually show you here. Let's go here. I have Tony Hawk's again. So far it looks like it's running pretty good, but once you get into the game, let's see here. Career mode, single, let's go Free Skates. Here we go. See, like there's a dip in the frame rate right there. And as you can see, it runs, but it's just barely playable, really. For some games, I would imagine this isn't that big an issue. Like for, say, turn-based strategy games, perhaps that's a playable state. Keep in mind, I haven't messed around with the settings on the simulator too much yet. I'm going to turn on frame skip here. Let's go frame skip 2. Nope, whatever I did, yeah, the frame skip doesn't really make the game much better. It gets quite chopped with that frame skip, so let's go back to stock. Let's go with the 0 frame skip. Sure. So I actually like the way it runs better without frame skip. But as you can tell, the music obviously gets very, very choppy. So yeah, as I was saying, 32-bit, you're probably not going to want to play 32-bit games with this device. But if you're looking to emulate anything below the PS1, this would be really, really cool. Now, as I said in the beginning, the PocketGo isn't a perfect device. It gets a lot of things right, and I do enjoy it quite a bit, but there are a few issues. There's basically 3 issues with this thing. So the first thing is it's pretty mild, and from what I understand, I haven't come across a lot of reports of this happening on other devices, so maybe it's just with mine. But the volume wheel here, I'm gonna turn it up. Let me see if I can. I'm not sure if you can hear. I'm gonna hold this to the microphone right there. So you should be hearing a little faint whine or like a buzzing sound. So I'm hearing this here, and yeah, it's not a huge issue, but it's always there. Like when I crank the volume, it's quite, when I'm holding the device from the way I would be playing it, I would never be able to hear that. Now, the second issue, and this is something that bothers me a little bit more, it's the light bleed. So with this unit here, and again, this appears to be a problem just with my unit. I haven't noticed this on other reviews, and I haven't seen anybody talking about this. But the system went to sleep here. Here we go. I'm not sure if you can see it, but right there, you see that right there? There's a little bit of light bleed coming from that side, and obviously you can tell when it's tilted like this, Most games, you can't really notice this, but in some games, depending on the color scheme of that game, that light will get picked up and it gets bounced around in this little corner here, so it can be distracting in some games. It's easy to forget that it's there, but once you notice that it's there, your eyes are going to be drawn to it. Not a huge deal, but it does interfere with the graphical fidelity and the color fidelity of certain games. So what I'm going to do is, after this review, I want to do the review first before I end up destroying this thing. But I'm going to take this thing apart to both put on the new buttons and also maybe put a little bit of tape on the side here to block that light. And the unavoidable issue is that you're going to run into some screen tearing with the PocketGo. And I say unavoidable because in my years of playing with portable emulators, especially these less expensive ones, that's something that's just, it comes with the territory of emulating. If you buy something more expensive like a GPD-XD or a PSP Go, you're not going to notice as much of this, but they are quite a bit more expensive. At $40, the PocketGo is easy to recommend. It's very portable, it has a pretty decent screen, battery, the buttons feel good. The L and R buttons don't travel as much as I would like, but they are perfectly fine, and perhaps I'm a little bit nitpicky. I don't like that it doesn't have a user replaceable battery. I mean, it's just not as easy to replace like the Bit Boy, because you could just pop the back here and just carry spares with you. You can replace the battery, it's not soldered onto the motherboard, but you have to bust out a Phillips screwdriver and actually take the whole thing apart. But yeah, this is the PocketGo. I like it quite a bit. A few flaws, like I said, but I love the look of it. I love the design. I love the fact that it's a mix between a GBA and a DMG. Everything about it is pretty good, especially, like I said, I'm a sucker for this size, this form factor, the colors and the size. I love it. It's like they took the Revo K101 and improved pretty much everything about it, from the buttons to the size to the screen, everything. Like, I really like this thing. I'm going to be doing future videos comparing this, the PocketGo, to other portable emulation solutions. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the notification bell. Well, subscribe first, then hit the notification bell. Drop me a line in the comments if there's anything about this device you want some more information on. I'll take that into account when I do a follow-up video on this thing. In case you're new here, follow me on social media. I'm very active over there. And that's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy, and I'm done.